Government Service Insurance System, or GSIS, insists that it will only invest excess funds into the proposed Maharlika Investment Fund.
Meron tayong pera, ngunit hindi ho natin nagkakaroon ng calculated risk. Masama ho bang makahingi ng buntot ng manok at maipakain natin to improve the benefits of the Filipino people?
Our foreign exchange reserves are dwindling. In fact, my colleague Ronnie Bernardo is expecting our international reserves to fall again by next year to about 87 billion from about 90 plus. Again, because of our current account and trade deficits.
GSIS President and General Manager Vic Veloso assured that pension funds will remain untouched.
Marami po nagtatanong about transparency on this initiative. Meron po tayo ditong board. Kami po ang nandoon sa board of directors.
Gipa ni Veloso, para lang din daw sa kapakanan ng mga Pilipino ang kikitain ng Maharlika Fund.
Will it move the needle if we ask for a small amount so that our kababayans will be freed from the bondage of being in a developing country all their lives?
A major development in the Maharlika Investment Fund bill. Earlier tonight, its authors made revisions. Instead of pension funds, initial investments will come from the Bangko Central's profits. Will this manage opposition and criticism to the proposal? We discuss in this episode of The Chiefs. And welcome to this midweek edition of The Chiefs. I'm Ed Lingao. Joining us online, Ana Marie Pamintuan of the Philippine Star from the port area in Manila, and Lucy Cruz Valdez, the head of News 5. Ladies, happy midweek.
Hello, happy midweek.
Ba't talagang happy kayo?
Baka happy na yung kayo kasi mga reklamador, oh ye of little faith. Ayan tuloy, kinancel na yung plano na mag-SSS saka gamitin yung SSS.
Well, anong OE of little faith? At last, they have heard.
Ayan. Pero sigurado we will be hearing from
Okay.
Ano mangyayari dyan.
Okay. Although there are a lot of questions still left unanswered, kasi among the possible funding sources that they're looking at are BSP profits, and if they're referring to dividends, that's not much.
Kaya hindi pa rin malaman kung anong panggagawin.
Well, reserves din yata ang sinasabi nilang marami.
I don't know if you want to touch reserves.
Umaapaw daw.
Kaya touch the reserve.
Yeah, so that might even be more controversial. If you
So
start
hindi
doing
na
that.
siya reserve.
Oo nga, hindi na.
So you have that, and that's what we will be talking about for most of the evening. And then you also have what happened with San Miguel Global Power and the SPPC, South Premier, and their decision to inform Meralco that they are terminating beginning today actually hindi termination suspension lang pala. We talked to the DRC. Suspension lang ng PSA. So
pero
that
may
begins
epekto
today.
na kaagad yun sa electric bill.
Yeah.
By January daw, mararamdaman natin.
Yeah. And, the floor director keeps on pointing to the paperweight here beside me, so I have to make reference to this. Perhaps Lucy can tell us what this is.
Oh, yes. This is an award from the People Management Association of the Philippines, or PMAP. And we won in the Best Public Affairs Program category. The Chiefs. So congratulations, Ed and Annie.
This
and
only
Robbie.
proves na hindi lang yung mga nanay-tatay natin nanonood ng The Chiefs.
Oo nga Pero galing ako doon ni-receive ko yung award Marami doon medyo kaedad mo, Ed.
Mga bata pa. Okay, sige. Mga bata pa. Okay. Anyway, we have a full night tonight. We have a full panel tonight. So we will just go into a quick break and prepare for the panel. And we want to have as much time as possible for the panel. So please stay with us. From economists to progressive groups, various sectors have been voicing their concern on the creation of a sovereign wealth fund. We dive deeper into this controversial bill with economists Andrew Masigan and JC Punongbayan and Bayan Muna Partylist Chairman Attorney Neri Colmenares. Gentlemen, welcome to the Chiefs. It's good to have you on board. Finally, face-to-face meeting again.
Good evening, Ed. Good evening.
And of course, we have our ladies with us via Zoom, Ana Pamituan and Lucy Valdez.
Hello, Lucy. Good evening, Ami.
Hello, good evening.
Good to see you
Wish we were there, but
Oh, walang traffic na. Habol pa. Sige. Well, let's start off with the developing... But let's start off with developing events tonight. Si Congresswoman Stella Kimbo mentioned na they're taking out GSIS and SSS doon sa seed money funding. And that's a big chunk, 125, 50
175.
Yeah,
175.
total.
But Ed, it doesn't take away the fact that it's still using people's money, taxpayers' money, and the constituents, of course, of the GFIs. And secondly, the lack of transparency and sufficient safeguards are still there. And still people's money left there without sufficient safeguards. And thirdly, that practically wins the argument of many of us in saying, why rush it? Kayo nga mismo hindi nyo alam eh.
Nagbabago pa.
Nagbabago kayo kasi when you filed the bill, when you drafted the bill, marami kayong hindi naaral pa, hindi nyo alam. So basically, the fact that they withdrew the SSS only proves our point na hindi pa naaral ito na mabuti. Therefore, do not rush it, do not approve it by December 14 as they planned, but rather give it time to consult the people and allow those who oppose it to pose their questions. That's accountability and that's transparency in the process itself. At sana naman, ipagbigay nila yon.
Well, this is not an issue that you can do in haste or you could execute in haste. No? We're talking about the people's money here, and it's not a small amount. This is the taxpayers' money. This is the depositors' money. And before the SSS and GSIS contributions were removed, it was the contributors' money. And I understand why the GSIS and SSS part was taken out, because it's illegal in the first place. I mean, it was a Supreme Court decision in 1961 that contributions are the people's money held in trust by the government, held in trust, so not free for the government to use. No? But Ed, this bill is so problematic on many levels because at the heart of it is to maximize investment opportunities and to maximize dividends, profits, interest, and whatever. But the operative word here is investing excess liquidity. Excess liquidity which we don't have. Okay, so maybe I'll explain later more about that later because it's long.
About this.
But maybe JC wants to say something.
Yes, well, actually, if you look at the data from January to October this year, the government has been incurring more than 1 trillion pesos in deficit. So wala talagang pera eh. In fact, yung ang palaking deficit, it pressures the government to borrow even more. So actually, yung pagtanggal do sa SSS and GSIS, it doesn't remove the fact that wala tayong ganong klaseng surplus funds. Nabanggit ni Representative Kimbo na they might take some money from BSP's profits, pero modern central banking actually advises against touching, the government touching the BSP. Yung central bank independence is really taken seriously in many countries. It's part of the modern central banking system. So it goes against that principle.
But that in itself is problematic. I mean, touching the funds of the BSP.
Yeah.
Why? The BSP needs ammunition to defend the peso.
Yeah.
Especially now that the conditions are so volatile. No? So you're taking that ammunition away. I don't think that's a prudent thing to do.
Well, let's bring in our ladies.
Pero, pero ang mukhang itutuloy pa rin the way they're talking, ang House.
Yeah, the fact that they revised.
In fact, earlier today, ang sabi nila, they expect to approve it on second reading, which is actually the final, by this month. So ang tatanungin ko na lang, kumusta ba investment climate natin? It's an investment fund, It's supposed to earn a profit. Saan ba pwede mag-invest at this time? Even in 2023, let's say, the next year man lang. Kasi ang sabi ni Ben Joc, they're expecting na malo-launch nila to by mid-2023. How's the investment climate looking domestically and globally next year?
I don't really see the need to rush because next year is going to be a recession year in most major markets. And we've already felt, I've read your column about your investment portfolio losing losing X%. And you're not, and you're not the only one because I was telling Ed, even I lost. But it's a global situation, it's a global situation. So anything that's equity related and all that is not a good investment. That said, the climate is not conducive or ideal to maximize investments. Besides, I'd also like to say that the BSP, the LDP, and the DPP all have their own investment committees. Why is there, who's to say that the MIF will have a better investment committee who can decide better? They may be more reckless. I'm not willing to take the risk.
And putting it in law makes it mandatory.
Yeah, exactly.
Actually,
Okay, so what is the reasoning behind bankers whom we respect, like Whit Belonzo of GSIS, actually supporting this? Or let's go even higher, no? Ben Jokno, I mean, our finance secretary and former BSP head, no? Why do they so believe that this is a great investment, that this is actually the time to move it forward because it will reap, benefits for the Philippine economic system.
Yeah.
I don't know how to put it. I am not a banker by any measure, but they must know something that we ordinary people don't understand as far as investments and managing funds are concerned.
Actually, I think, in my opinion, this really comes down to politics. I mean, Stella Kimbo is a respected economist, and so is Ben Jokno. Pero in fact, as we speak, many economists that I know, a group of economists in academe and practicing economists, are actually drafting this statement, arguing against the Maharlika Fund. So we might expect that maybe tomorrow or in a few days. Pero there's the consensus among academic economists, at least, is that this is not a good idea.
But you see, let me just squeeze in this. But si Stella is with Liberal Party.
Again, from a layman's point of view, what they're making us believe, or at least that's what I'm hearing, is that this is the best time to invest because stock prices are low and they have nowhere to go but up. So if we don't move now, we're not going to see our funds increase at the rate that they could possibly go. Is that a good reasoning?
For me, I don't think they know better than us in the sense, Lucina. Marami rin silang mali ang kanilang growth rate prediction. In-adjust naman nila yun. They're not perfect din eh. Mali din yung kanilang, halimbawa, yung build nila, i-cover yung foreign currency reserves. Binawi nila kasi unwise pala. They're not really
infallible.
In fact, they're just pushing this because favorable sa presidente, favorable sa principal nila. So para sa akin, mas yun pa yung dahilan na bakit nila pinupush ito. Kasi sino ba naman papayag? Magkakaroon tayo ng loop ng investment funds, ang safeguards tinanggal. The bill itself says regulatory restrictions do not apply to this fund. Pag ikaw banker, pag ikaw finance, somebody who's going to advise you, invest tayo dito, walang tinatanggal dito ang regulatory restrictions like bidding and so on, di ba? I-review ng OGCC certain financial transactions of government to ensure na walang corruption, tanggal yun, not applicable. Siyempre, hindi ka mag-i-invest doon. Kasi this is a very dangerous kind of situation.
The fund is not subject to government procurement protocols. Neither are the people involved in the fund subject to the government salary standardization. So you can imagine they can buy, they can buy a castle in Scotland for the Marcos executives to use. And we have no say about it. And they can justify it as a sound government.
Yung reasoning din nila is, Andy, the reasoning is, this is basically an investment it's a banking thing, and the best bankers' minds are needed for this.
You know,
and
Lucy,
if we're going to subject them to the salary standardization law, this is what they're saying, no? Wala kayo, we're not going to attract the best minds here.
But Lucy, you know what?
Doesn't that make sense?
Well, okay, let's put it this way. Even the bankers are against this because the financial executive, FINEX, no? Financial Executive Organization of the Philippines.
Of the Philippines,
Management Association of the Philippines, Philippine Chamber of Commerce and Industry, Makati Business Club, all went on record to say that they're against the fund. It's just not the right time. And at the heart of it are two issues. It's we don't have the excess funds, number one, and there are questions about the justice system. Is there enough checks and balances to make sure that the fund is not
Governance.
abused? Diba?
Yes.
Is a
If you
good
actually,
governance.
if you actually look at the more successful examples of a sovereign wealth fund, the one key principle is to diversify your assets by investing globally. But one of the weirder provisions of the Maharlika bill is that actually it provides for local investments. But this will subject the Maharlika fund to a lot of politicization, as well as it might pave the way for picking winners. Essentially, the government, whether it's the president or the secretary of finance, picking which industries will be invested in. So parang.
But let me backtrack a bit. Kasi kanina we were talking about this is probably a political decision. But a lot of people were surprised that Stella Kimbo, whom a lot of people had relied on to be the check and balance of sorts in the budgeting and the finance system in Congress, is one of the co-authors. And last time I checked, she was still with the Liberal Party. I don't know if she still is. How does that factor in?
I think she recently left. I may have to fact check that. But she recently left, and actually many economists are quite disappointed that she is one of the co-authors.
Okay, so she's no longer with the opposition.
You know, I was saying earlier, sometimes you have to play the short game to win the long game. It's all politics, and that's the only way I can justify Ms. Kimbo's support of this bill.
I mean,
But Andy, isn't this political suicide if it fails? I mean, for
I
example,
think it's suicide
no less than the president is the chairman. Why is he putting at risk the political capital he now has? If there was a chance that this could fail.
I think the bigger issue, rather than political risk, is the risk for the country. We're talking about 250 billion, and this is what?
that's just a seed money.
60%, yeah, seed money. 60% of 1 year's GDP. I mean, this is not. It could break the banking system. It could break all our financial institutions. I mean, the risk is
No, but
just
if
too
it's
great.
political, then it's supposed to benefit them, right? I mean, let's face it. The issue is trust. Many people don't trust that these people
Yeah, you know
are
what?
going to work for the funds good.
I think, Lucy,
that they're just going to line their pockets.
I think, Lucy, they believe
Yes.
naman that this will, for them, tingin nila, oh, this is a good thing. So they're not really thinking. In fact, that's why they're doing this and pushing this, because they think, oh, we have a lot of political capital right now. We can do this, di ba? But tingin nila yon kasi sila siyempre ang magbe-benefit dyan. So basically sa akin, we say it's a political risk, but for them, hindi political risk ito. And in fact, they think they will weather this kind of storm.
I mean,
There's this explanation na dahil nga daw sa laki ng utang natin, which keeps growing, dapat daw gamitin na lang tong ganitong klaseng fund to propel development projects. Pwede ba yun? It's a sovereign wealth fund, di ba? Ganun ba function? I cannot understand that explanation. Pero yun yung sinasabi ng iba na para daw mabawasan yung pangungutang natin, ito na lang ang gamitin to finance certain projects.
You know what, Ami? You're absolutely right. And that is the mandate of the Land Bank. And they're supposed to support the agricultural industry. That's the mandate of the DBP, who's supposed to support industry. So if the funds are channeled to what the bank's mandate truly is, a bigger chunk, no? Then that will have a bigger cascade and a bigger long-term effect, I believe. So it's already built in the system. Why reinvent the wheel and have all these redundancies? Even worse, why rush it? Why are we rushing it in 1 week?
In a similar vein lang, President Duterte borrowed nearly more than 6 trillion in 6 years, more than the 5 presidents' loans before him. So ang siguro ang posisyon dapat ni President Marcos is saan ito napunta? Kasi hindi naman ito build. How many projects lang? Parang 19 out of 112 projects na nagawa. Ang COVID response was at least 570 billion. Hindi umabot ng 1 trillion. So where did the 6 trillion go? Baka naman may pera dito na pwede nating magamit instead of going to the taxpayers through budget, through all these sources of funds, kaysa sa pahirapan natin ang taong bayan, hanapin muna I'm still demanding na unless the government can account for the 6 to 7 trillion na inutang in the last 6 years, they have no right at all to get these funds from the people, whether it's GSIS, SSS, or even Land Bank. I mean, I'm a depositor in Land Bank. I don't want my deposits to be wasted in an investment, di ba? So, all these things boil to one thing. Mukhang hindi nila iniisip ang kapakanan ng taong bayan despite their statements that they're doing this for the people.
Okay, JC, before we go to break.
Yeah, I just wanted to add that in some examples, for example, Norway, where their sovereign wealth fund is actually as large as $1 trillion. Kung ganun kalaki yung sovereign fund mo, you can use that very well to finance public works and all that. And pero the problem
is, afford to lose $174 billion.
yeah. And in fact, each Norwegian actually parang meron silang 13 million pesos na hati dun sa kanilang sovereign wealth fund. Ganun kalaki siya. Pero in this case, parang to begin with, wala tayong surplus. And yun nga, parang if you want to finance public works, there are other ways of doing that. For example, public-private partnerships.
Okay, we will just take a quick break. So, chillan tayo dyan. The Chiefs will be right back. And welcome back to the Chiefs on One News. Still our hot topic on the table, the proposed Maharlika Sovereign Wealth Fund. Gentlemen, yung amended bill, we don't have that much details yet, pero let's take the announcements for what they've given us. Hindi nagagalawin yung GSIS tsaka yung SSS. Possibly they'll take the profits from BSP and
Is it even enough?
Land Bank.
Yeah.
That's my question. Does it sound feasible financially? Is there enough there to go by to build an investment fund? Would it even work? Diba? BSP's dividends last year was what, 15 billion?
It could be. They might touch the reserves. Because where else will they form 250 billion? So the country's reserves is at the moment below 100 billion. No? So it's a working capital that's just enough. I think that's sufficient for 3 months, 6 months, 3 to 6 months worth of imports. No, that's very thin.
75 billion. Yes, yes.
We're about 90 something now. No, we're about 90 something now. But bear in mind that, and this I'd like to segue to another related topic, which is there are bigger problems which need Congress's attention and the President's attention, and that is the trade deficit. And you spoke about our current account deficit and our budget. It's deficits all around, okay? We need a manufacturing resurgence to get exports up, okay? And that's the only way we can balance the budget. Why are we talking about spending the whatever working capital is there when this is what we need to be doing?
I actually checked the news. So for the first half of this year, the BSB's profits was just about 54 billion pesos. Very small compared to what they plan to.
What do they mean by profits ba? Is it the same as dividends? Or it's different pa?
Smaller ang dividends.
Well, dividends is a fraction of
the profits.
So it's even less than that. So where else how will they, paano nila ibubuo yung 250 billion?
And what's the risk if they touch the reserves, for example, or if they touch the profits of BSP? What are the risks involved here?
Oh yeah, actually, if you look at the reserves of the Bangko Sentral, it's actually declining steadily in the past couple of months. From about 7 months worth of imports, it's going down. And importante na, kasi may threshold yan, parang 3 or 4 months at least, dapat hindi tayo bumaba dun. Pero we're well on the way to that. And in fact, I think some economists have pointed out na yung international reserves natin ay mas konti na compared sa ating external debt. So in other words, yun yung gagamitin natin na pambayad sa ating utang panlabas. And mas konti na yung reserba natin compared sa ating total na utang panlabas. So this is a perilous time if you touch the international reserves. And at any rate, it violates principles of macroprudential principles. Basically, dapat independent ang central bank sa policies of the national government. And this is an accepted principle across the world.
And even the
Given our
annual
economic
dividends of...
condition, and we're always talking about timing, no? Is the problem really just timing? But will we ever get to a point where we can actually afford a sovereign wealth fund if you're saying that it should come from excess liquidity? Meron ba? Kasi Bam Aquino proposed it. Was that a good time? Of course, he's now saying at that time, we had 100 billion in reserves and so on and so forth. So is it just a question of time? Or will we ever get to a point where we can afford a sovereign wealth fund?
I'd like to think that we would get to that point. No? I mean, being optimistic about the economy, hopefully we'll get to that point. But it's not only a matter of are we able to afford it. It's can the justice system guarantee the Filipino people that there will be enough checks and balance and that the rule of law, will be enforced above political sway, because in this town it's the man on top who has the last say, and the justice system concedes to the man on top, and that's a scary part.
More importantly kasi, tinanong nga ako dyan so is there any change dyan sa bill na yan na pwede na siyang okay? Sabi ko, currently, sa level ng korupsyon natin, sa compromise ang checks and balance ngayon. Supermajority sa Congress, appointees ng Marcos Duterte, lahat ng independent commission, COA, COMELEC, lahat yan. Hindi talaga pwede ang ganung klase na pondo.
So trust issue talaga.
Yeah, you know what? I'm old enough to share, and maybe Neri, you also.
I'm older than you.
Let's not go there.
Okay, no. You know, my parents.
Let's not talk about age.
Luchi, my parents. This hits home to me because my parents lost their life savings when the banking system broke. When Herminio Decini absconded with $50 million yung kickback niya sa
BNPP.
Yeah, Bataan Nuclear Power. That, plus the Coco Levy and all of that, okay? Was the money ever recovered? Was justice ever rolled out? Maybe in the case of Decini, yes, but he was dead already.
He was supposed to pay $1 billion, but I don't know if they've ever been able to collect.
Well, this is 40 years after the fact, no? 40 years, it's a one
So we
generation
don't know if
had
they were able
passed.
to collect.
You know, and I have
And Coco Levy, no? Coco Levy.
the Coco
it's 50
Levy, and
years
don't,
after the fact.
don't
And
forget the road
kulang
fund.
pa, no?
Don't
Yeah.
forget the road fund. $61 million
Yes.
was lost there.
Producer
you know,
stocks, yes.
when shit hits the fan, I'm sorry for the language, but when shit hits the fan, politicos shrug their shoulders, play the blame game. In the end, no one is accountable. In the end, the Filipino people, the taxpayers, pay. So,
But that's what I'm saying. They're saying that it's no less than the president who's chairing this. And that's supposed to give us a level of confidence that if the president himself, diba, is putting his name on the line for this must work.
Yeah. Actually, Luchi, if
Sabi
you...
nga nila,
yeah.
no? They will appoint yun ang to allay your fears.
think
You
it's
will
even
appoint to a
worse.
technocrat as manager. Ngayon, sabi ni Senator Coco Pimentel kagabi, ang technocrat na yan, napakalaki ng kikitain niya. Kasi in banking practices, you have to pay a management fee daw of up to 2%.
2%.
Ang sabi niya sa banking circles is 0.5% of the total amount of the fund. Yun ang pupunta sa manager's fee. Kasi wala naman daw.
Magkano yun? Sa 275.
Oo.
so
Tama,
well,
eh.
a narrow
Yun,
elite will be happy, that's for sure. You know,
The fact, sorry, ikaw muna, JC.
Siguro, I'll just say na if you add, for example, yung ill-gotten wealth of the Marcoses that the PCCG is still going after, 125 billion pesos. And then the estate taxes of the Marcoses that still haven't been paid, about 203 billion pesos. That amounts to 328 billion pesos, a lot larger than the seed fund of the Maharlika Fund that they're proposing. Pero going back to Luchi's earlier question about timing, I just wanted to say na the closest thing na siguro pwede nating makapagkuhanan ng pera for a sovereign wealth fund would be Malampaya back in the 2000s. So if we had just implemented a sovereign wealth fund in the 2000s, siguro ang laki ng perang sa ngayon. Pero yun nga actually by 2027, we're facing an energy crisis in Luzon dahil paubos na yung Malampaya natural gas reserves. At ito nasa dying end na tayo ng Malampaya. So wala tayong makuha, hindi na natin siya magamit as a resource for a sovereign wealth fund.
And additionally, the fact that it's the head of state is the head of the wealth fund provides no comfort.
But is that
Si Prime Minister Najib was the one who stole the IMDb wealth fund, sovereign fund ng Malaysia. Prime Minister mismo, so komportable ka ba na ang head ng gobyerno nyo, siya ang umupo? No, in fact, natatakot ka nga minsan kasi politicized ng buong pondo at may experience ng head ng gobyerno ng Malaysia, yun ang nagnakaw mismo ng kanilang sovereign
Actually, I was
wealth
wondering about that. Is that regular practice that you have the head of the government sitting as chairman of
well,
of
in
a
Middle
sovereign
Eastern
wealth fund?
countries, they're monarchy. So,
Ah, yeah. Well, yeah.
If I remember correctly, Najib didn't even didn't even sit as the CEO of the IMDb. Nanakaw niya pa. How much more kung nakasit ka na doon mismo, di ba?
the risks are just too large. I mean, is it really worth? Are the benefits of putting it all in one juicy loot? Do they outweigh having it dispersed and managed, the funds managed by professional investment committees from the LDP, from the DBP, and before they were professionally run. Why break a working model?
But I was wondering lang, where does Amy Marcos come in? Kasi diba, you had the president's son, the president's cousin pushing the bill, and then you had Amy Marcos, the president's sister, saying she has apprehensions. So,
I don't know.
how do you see that? What do you see into that?
It's not the first time naman that they disagreed siya and the speaker. Diba kahit nung umpisa pa lang meron na sila mga disagreements. And siya yung nananalo actually.
But ang sabi rin ni Benjok, no, this is also the president's the president's pet bill. I mean, I don't not in those words, pero
But there's been a denial also.
If the funds were to be channeled to something more concrete that can provide jobs, like reviving the National Steel Corporation, like building a cement industry, a heavy industry, shipbuilding industry, something concrete, export earning, industrial, provide jobs, I'm all for it.
national industrialization actually, Ed, yun yung for me, that's the economic engine for growth. Yun talaga yun eh. The moment we produce what we need, rather than we produce what other countries need, and let them produce our needs.
And we import them.
Hindi, parang magbibenta ka ng niyog, bibili ka ng electric fan, nilugi ka, di
And
ba?
this is doing exactly the opposite because with the fund, it's money going out. I mean, a portion of it naturally will be going out instead of coming in. So it's doing the opposite,
Yes.
no? So I just don't see the merits.
Sige, under one set
Pero
of test na lang, will a sovereign wealth fund work?
Oh.
Anong mga requirements? Kung sakasakali, best practices. Kasi
Within
kahit-
our lifetime, within our lifetime ba yan?
Yung Norway na wala ng pera this year.
South Korea, nawala din ng pera.
Singapore. Pero anong mga requirements kung sakasakali? Kasi sabi ng House ngayon they're working on mga 7 yata or 8 provisions just to reassure everyone na magiging well-managed siya, no corruption. Ano yung mga requirements?
For me, at least two basic things. Number one, you have to have a huge budget surplus. Hanap ka muna ng sobrang pera bago ka mag-invest in something na ipupusta mo or igagamble mo in investments globally. Pero sa ngayon, wala tayong ganung klaseng surpluses to speak of. In fact, may deficit tayo na 6.5% based on the latest statistics that the President himself said he wants to bring down to 3% by the end of his term. Pero how can you do that kung ipupusta mo pa itong malaking pondo na ito? And then I think the second would be good governance. I think you have to earn the trust of people before you come up with this type of proposal. Just to add one more thing, ang nakakatawa, for example, in the case of Norway, meron silang ganung klaseng sovereign wealth fund to pay for pensions of their people. Pero tayo, we use the pensions of the people to
It's the other way around.
It's the other way around. Of course, binawi na, pero in the first place, it should not have been proposed at all.
I'll add to what you mentioned. Also, a functioning sovereign justice system is a third requirement, apart from the surplus and what you said, good governance.
So will we see that lifetime?
I think naman we'll see that sometime in the future. Hindi naman hopeless tayo, pero now is not the time. Ganito
Now's not the
karampant yung corruption. May family lang tayo a few years ago. In fact, sino ba nakulong doon? I mean, di ba? So, hindi siya talaga...
PhilHealth.
Yeah, PhilHealth and so on, di ba? Sabi nila, we said independent naman yung board. No, lahat naman yan, independent nga ang Congress, co-equal pa, pero subservient naman sa presidente. Words mean nothing here.
Really?
Sa totoo lang, you put in the bill
I mean,
things like...
don't make us...
But
Diba?
realistically, do you see this passing the Senate?
Ako, no. Senate.
The Senate.
May problemang malaki
Sa
sa
House kasi
Senate.
mukhang sureball na yung House eh.
Ako sa House, I won't surrender the House with the way the people are opposing it now and the way they're retreating. At the very least, we can argue and win the argument na wag muna ngayon. Pag-usapan pa, don't rush it now. And most, who knows, they may, with the response of the people, the House may even fold, Para sa akin, I'm an eternal optimist, but I have this eternal trust on the capacity of the people to oppose anything as blatant as this.
JC.
Alam niyo kung kailan tayo pwedeng gumawa ng sovereign wealth fund? Kung makahanap tayo ng bagong reserba ng natural gas or petroleum sa West Philippine Sea. Justice Carpio has been talking about this na potentially ang dami pang reserves doon. Kung meron tayong exploration or if we can do something about it, then siguro yung proceeds noon can be put into a sovereign wealth fund. But until then, this is not a good time.
We need our liquidity now because next year is going to be shock after shock. Economic shocks, ripples from Europe, from the United States, from Russia. China is not going to recover still. So we need to arm ourselves with the working capital, with the buffers, to protect our way of life. So this is, for me, very careless at this point.
Ami? Lucy?
Last na lang, hindi ko lang maintindihan yung, they're saying, of course, that they will be investing in infra, no? So, ang para sa kanila, what are they trying to shortcut here? Is it the red tape? I mean, because I know that we have plans in place, right, to build better. Yun nga yung part of it. But when they say that we're going to invest in infrastructure, So mas mapapabilis ang development.
Yeah, how does that work?
And how does that work? I mean, and how can the present system not work? Because we have built better, may ganun yung slogan, di ba? And yet, kailangan itong fund in order to finance infrastructure.
Lucy, we've never been short. We've never been short of capital to finance infrastructure. All the so long as the projects are viable, all the PPP proposals are taken up. Well, it's different story. Yung same 6 companies are taking it up over and over. That's a different story. But there's enough capital in the system. There's no need for a sovereign fund to step in to bridge a capital gap. There's no gap to speak of.
Actually, yeah. Sige.
Okay, yeah.
May shortcut
One last.
talaga, may shortcut
There's
lang.
also a proposal, parang suggestion lang na siguro daw if it's I think this came from Presidential Advisor Joey Concepcion. No? Sabi niya, maybe somebody like RSA or MVP or the Ayalas can run it. Will that work if we have somebody, a private expert businessman, successful businessman to run it?
Papayag ba naman niya, sakit ng ulo na yan.
Para sa akin may problema kasi.
Kunyari lang.
Para sa akin may
Will that
problema.
work?
Kasi may
Well, they
conflict
have
of
enough problems.
Go ahead, Neri.
Yeah, well, may conflict of interest agad kasi there's going to be an investment to be run by the possible players din doon. The point talaga, this wealth fund is not, talagang hindi siya pwede ngayon. Sabi nga ni, nating lahat kanina, na we need the level ng corruption, etc., di ba? So, I guess, whether sino man yang nakaupo dyan, whether tanggalin man nila si President Marcos dyan, tanggalin man nila SSS, GSIS, ilagay man nila kung... Doesn't matter. Kasi ang accountability mechanism, ang transparency is not there. This is a shortcut talaga. Taking away the restrictions, regulatory restrictions, that's one reason why mahirap ang pondo na to. Talaga ang term ko nga dyan, stealable. Nakawin talaga ang
Kahit
pondo
Talyano
nito.
Gold pa ilagay dyan.
They can invest and channel the people's money with impunity, and we're not ready for that.
I think when it comes to the point about infrastructure, you have to remember that the President is the chair of the NEDA board.
Yeah.
At dumadaan sa NEDA board lahat ng mga big-ticket infrastructure projects. So if they just want to accelerate yung ganong klaseng infrastructure projects, then it's actually at the disposal of the President. He can do that very well, even without resorting to this kind of mechanism.
Except here, walang regulatory restrictions.
Well,
You have a lot of exemptions.
Pardon?
You have a lot of exemptions.
A lot of exemptions.
Pati tax exemptions nandyan.
Tax exemptions sa transactions ng wealth fund and connected or related transactions. Sino yon? Ano yon? Hindi natin alam. Pero may tax exemption din yon. That vague term called related transactions. Which could favor any crony. I mean, di ba? So, medyo masalimuot even taxation. And last point ko na lang, budget. Mag-i-infuse yung budget dito. Deficit budget tayo.
Yes.
So, pag
10.5
nag-infuse ka ng
billion
infuse ng pondo dyan from the budget, magkakat ka. Anong ikakat nila? I'm really sure education, health, social services, hindi naman sila magkakat sa pork barrel. Hindi naman sila magkakat sa Intel Fund, confidential funds. Dito sa basic social services. So it's a triple whammy. Taxpayers' money, mawawaldas, pati yung social services apektado because the budget will infuse funds to a losing proposition such as this Maharlika Wealth Fund.
Yung early revision nga ng bill called for the BSP dividends to be used for the annual contributions. But if they're moving it up to the seed money na, so they'll have to fill in the annual contributions with something else, from somewhere else.
Yes. In fact, the annual dividend of BSP was 20 billion in 2021. 2020, it was given for COVID. O ngayon, dahil kinuha mo na, di sana magamit pa pala sana yan sa something worthwhile. Kinuha mo na sa isang pondo na hindi natin alam kung saan
Na napunta sa Farmally, by the way.
Correct.
actually, one of the weirder...
You're right there.
Isa pa sa weird provisions doon sa Maharlika bill, at least doon sa first version, is that sabi nila the BSP reserves of the BSP, for example, 10% of the equivalent of OFW remittances.
Yeah, I was wondering about that.
Yes.
Overseas remittances, 10% of the equivalent.
Yes.
And then BPO.
Meron pang
BPO, yeah.
BPO.
Yeah,
Even
oo.
BPO.
And
Yeah,
nabanggit
the first
doon,
one,
yeah.
the first bill.
So anything, well, these are all
10% of
the...
BPO contribution is
lahat.
equivalent. was wondering what that meant eh.
That's weird kasi hindi naman pera ng BSP yung OFW remittances as well as yung BPO earnings. So I think at a fundamental level, parang they are misunderstanding the role and function of the BSP.
Hindi nila naaral, Ed. Hindi nila naaral ng mabuti ang...
So what the way it's designed is whatever foreign exchange or whatever revenues, no, foreign exchange revenues are funneled into the system is what they're going to use. Hindi naman pwedeng ganyan. It's not their money to use. Foreign remittances are the money of the people.
Yeah.
Tapos yung BPO contributions.
BPO is the money of the corporation. So you just can't randomly, this is not Philippines Incorporated. It's a amalgamation of many components, many corporations, many stakeholders, many citizens, all of whom contribute to our economy. It's not one pot that you can. And that's what they want, to make it into one pot.
I was going to ask as a last question, so how do we move forward? But apparently, from everybody's point of view here, we shouldn't move forward at all.
No, not now.
It should, not at this
Moving
time.
forward sa House.
Resolve muna ang impunity sa corruption.
Pero siguro if I may add lang na in principle, okay naman yung sovereign wealth fund. There are many successful examples of that. Pero as always, yung konteksto, yung timing, and then of course yung leadership, yung governance is always about context.
I think a lot of people would agree with you on that. With that, gentlemen, maraming salamat for joining us tonight. Ladies, also, thank you for joining. Of course, you're always part of the show. Andrew Masigan, Neri Colmenares, and JC Punongbayan, thank you for joining us tonight. And
Our pleasure. Our pleasure.
You had a good conversation with us.
Thank you.
Okay, maraming salamat sa inyong lahat.
Thank you.
Okay, and that's it for the Chiefs. We hope what was discussed will keep the conversation going. I'm Ed Lingao.
I'm Ami Pamintuan of the Philippine Star.
I'm Lucy Cruz Valdez of News 5.
We are One News, all sides, all the time.